Welcome to the 8th weekly Q&A session for HGAC's 2015 TIP Call for Projects. This is David Wardlow with HGAC. Don't really have a whole lot to cover with y'all today, so we'll be dedicating almost the entire session to questions. I've received a couple in the last day or so, so we'll get started with those after we review with y'all. Again, just the schedule of the weekly Q&A sessions. Again, we hold these each Monday except for the exceptions, today being one of those. So the remainder of them I do believe we'll be able to do on Mondays at 2 p.m. So next week the 15th, and then the 22nd, 29th, January 5th, and January 12th, all the way through the application deadline. Again, we have updated the schedule. The application deadline is January 12th. Though the request for assistance deadline has passed, it was last week, please let us know if you're running into any difficulties or you have questions. We're not looking to make this impossible for folks to develop applications, but we do need to make sure that if a significant amount of assistance is necessary, that we think about how we might do that, or recommend another path forward for local government to take on their particular project. Again, all of the materials for the TIP call are posted to our website. You can follow the link on the screen, hgac.com/TAQ/TIP, or of course you can type in the search bar in our website at the top, 2015 TIP call or something like that, and the first link should take you to the correct page. Again, please use the tip at h-gac.com for any general questions you might have. You can, of course, contact me directly with any specific questions, something that you don't think anybody else may be able to answer or something like that. We need coordination with management or something like that. And of course, all text issues for the call should be coordinated through Catherine, just so that they can make sure they're all being addressed by the appropriate folks and can be done in a timely manner as well. Their time is going to be very valuable, particularly as we close in on the deadline, so making sure the right folks are being able to respond to you will become even more important. And that's really all I have for you guys. No additional slides or anything to walk you through today. So I'm going to jump straight over to the Q&A document. I have 3 questions that were submitted to me, I think, yesterday, dealing with transmittal documentation. I will go back to a slide we used in the workshop here in just a moment to highlight really I guess there are 2 issues here. One is, I guess, the official transmittal of an application, and the second being documentation of financial support. You can treat those kind of jointly together or separately. And so some of the response you'll see drafted here is presuming that they're kind of being handled in the same documentation, but that's not necessarily the case. Yes, we do need some type of official transmittal. Again, that's part of why we ask for that contact information for the agency, separate from the individual that's preparing or entering the information to the application online. A letter probably from that individual that is authorized to submit the application is fine. You can, of course, have that come from the appropriate executive from the agency or local government. That's fine too. Online attachment is fine. In fact, that's probably preferred. It helps us keep everything collected and together, so we're not trying to staple together pieces that might have come in the mail versus items that came in via email or some other form. It really would make it a lot easier, and we much prefer everything to just be attached to the online application itself. For joint projects, this affects a number of y'all. Is one letter okay from the prime sponsor? I will say that is one way to do it, and this is why I'm going to highlight for y'all, again, the documentation we're looking for in particular financial support. We need some form of documentation from anybody that's really asserting a commitment to provide that financial support. And in particular, if you've got joint agencies making the nomination, you could do that through the letter. Again, our preference would really be, again, it's kind of an order of preference, but the more teamwork that's demonstrated through that, the easier. One letter signed by both entities would obviously be the preference, or the highest preference. Separate letters addressed to us are fine, or documentation sent attached separately is fine. Or the other option is in cases where there may be a private or an entity or a MUD or something like that that's working with a county or a city to sponsor a project. They could provide that documentation and a communication to the lead sponsor, and then the lead sponsor just includes that. But really the lead sponsor is going to ultimately be responsible for delivering the project. Again, really this should pretty much reflect how you expect to contract the project and the agreement you'll have with TxDOT. If it's going to be a single entity, then a single sponsorship is fine. If you're going to have a multi-party agreement or something like that, we should probably see something from everybody that's going to be participating in that capacity. And just to highlight for you all again, what we were looking for on the financial commitment side. For some reason that's not wanting to do what I want it to do. There we go. Of course, the most direct indication of that commitment is the direct action from the council, court, or board in the form of a resolution or something like that that really commits that entity to the financial support. Also acceptable would be some type of adopted capital budget where that funding is identified and already has gone through some type of approval, review, and allocation process. We also will accept, as has been the case in the past, letters from officials from that agency with executive control. And again, that executive control is key, so they really don't need any other approvals from another board or any other individuals to commit those funds. So in most cases, you're going to need something in the form of a resolution or a CIP item. This is the same for local government concurrence, something from that affected entity, their governing body, or an official, again, with executive control, somebody who could approve like if it was a permit or an access right or something like that, somebody that could authorize that, would be okay. I hope that's clear enough on that particular question. And I guess at this point, then I'll just go ahead and see if anybody has any additional questions. Again, you can enter the questions by typing them into the question section of the interface, or you can always raise your hand, and we will unmute your line and let you ask your question verbally. All right, I'm not really seeing any questions, but I see Metro has just joined us, so for their benefit, I'll at least scroll up so they can see the questions that were posed yesterday, and we have some generic answers here in the Q&A document. All right. I see that Pat has a follow-up question. I will go ahead and hopefully, Pat, you're ready to ask your question. All right, Pat, are you there? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yep.
I'm sorry. I was hoping someone else would ask a question.
Okay.
So I can raise my hand. My questions have to do with the benefit cost analyses.
Sure.
So I just want to make sure I understand it. For a major investment, you require a benefit cost analysis for safety, congestion, asset management, economic competitiveness, and environmental, as well as a narrative for each of those. And on the website, the 2015 Call for Projects page, there's a delay reduction or delay benefit spreadsheet, and then there are a couple others, then there's the generic one. So I was a bit confused I'm not sure what the generic is for, or do we just use that? You're just providing basically standardized values for everything, so is that what that's for?
Yeah, that's correct. It was really just to make sure that, in particular, the discounting of those benefits is done the same way for areas outside of really those core analyses that we can provide assistance with. So, in particular, the asset management and the economic competitiveness, those are going to vary a lot depending on the project or the sponsor's experience. And of course, we don't have a lot of data to provide to support somebody in that direct analysis. So we didn't want to provide a template that wasn't going to be helpful to anybody. So we just tried to provide a generic one that you could perform your own analysis, plug in the stream of benefits, and then it would discount those using the same assumed values.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just wasn't sure if it was that's what I kind of thought it was, but then I was thinking, oh, maybe I'm totally missing it here.
Yeah.
The other question regarding that is on the economic competitiveness in the workshop presentation, you had shown the benefit cost analysis is using increases in property value over investment costs, jobs created and retained. The Tiger guidance shows for economic competitiveness, they actually use travel time savings and operating cost savings. Is that something we could use instead, or do we use what you have in the presentation? And the reason I ask that is just because jobs created, retained is kind of a hard number to come up with, or kind of a fuzzy number. So what do we do in this regard?
Right. No, I can certainly understand the question. It is not easy. To the first question, can you use the delay or the operating cost savings? I would say no, because those are covered directly in the other two areas, right? We have a delay savings area already, and we have an operating cost savings area already. Okay. The reason that we brought up jobs, and this is a break from the Tiger guidance explicitly. Of course, they basically say jobs created or retained is a transfer within regions or between regions within the U.S., so they don't really want to conclude it at all. We said, well, we're a smaller region. We're not generally talking about relocations within the region as much as trying to attract outside investment or investment that might go somewhere else in the country or in the state. So we wanted to include that as an opportunity for folks that might have that information, and also it aligns us better with the state's practice in looking at economic competitiveness.
The other thing in that is that in Tiger 2 with property value increases, it treats that sort of as a one-time, sort of not a stream of benefits, but a one-time action. So,
Right.
so it's a little different there as well. Okay.
Yeah, and I think we would look to the sponsors for their, you know, what information is most appropriate, and we'll follow up with any questions. Certainly, you know, to your point, if a project were, let's say, to entice a major oil and gas firm to consolidate their operations in a certain part of the region, that relocation happens once. It doesn't happen every year for the next 20 years.
Right.
So we would look to have that show up kind of in the right time frame based on when that you know, relocation or whatever is expected to occur, and it's just discounted appropriately. You're right. It might show up as kind of a one-year thing, and that's pretty much it. I would also say we understood that there may be some folks that struggle with certain areas for the benefit cost side, and they may not be able to even generate a quantitative assessment of that. That's explicitly why we included the narrative side as well. Folks can explain and discuss how their project might be advancing that RTP goal area, might be addressing it, but that might be outside of the identified benefit cost item.
Okay, but you do require both.
Yes,
right?
yes. So, you know, if it's something where, you know, if there's no known effect for economic competitiveness, for example, we don't know what the effect is going to be on adjacent property values or any change in employer behavior that might be induced. You can indicate that. We just don't want you to leave it blank. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So just affirmatively state, we don't have an estimate for this. Please see my narrative for the description of how we believe this project is advancing that RTP goal, and then we can take a look at it.
Okay, that sounds good. Also, if we submitted a request for, you know, modeling assistance or crash records or whatever by the 1st, when would we expect to get that information?
Sure. Another great question. Just want to make sure I've got the questions in there, and then I can come back and fill them in. I'm hoping kind of 10 to 15 business days. What we told folks will probably be closer to the 15 business days, but we'll keep you up to date. It may be that you get some pieces of it earlier, depending on, you know, our modeling folks and Jeff doing the safety stuff. Their queues might operate in different speeds. We'll try to get back to you the information as quickly as possible, but I don't have a real hard date to give you, but that's our goal, is that probably closer to the 15 business days.
Okay, all right. Thank you, David.
Yeah. All right, I see a question here about when will HGAC start scheduling TA meetings with sponsors. And Rose, if you don't mind just elaborating. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and answer it this way. At first, if TA meaning transportation alternatives, there will be no scheduled meeting. These projects, I'm assuming a PED bike kind of project, is another investment. Oh, technical assistance. Okay. Well, I'll answer it this way anyway. Other investment projects will not need a scoping meeting, so we will not schedule a meeting to do that. And kind of the same thing for technical assistance. If we've received the right information from the project sponsor, I don't think there's really any meeting that we're going to need to go over that so that we can respond to you. If we have any follow-up, we'll contact you. Really, where we will have some meetings is for major investments. Then we will be scheduling some scoping meetings to make sure the applications and really the the environmental document would be probably the first step, has the right elements in it. We know that we're not missing any major issues that might affect, in particular, the project cost or the scope. We'll be holding those in the January, probably into very early February timeframe with TxDOT. And then let me put in here. Apparently I cannot type today. All right, so Rose, I hope that answers your question. Okay, the follow-up there, Rose, you're asking bike ped will not need a benefit cost analysis. It will, but as long as you've entered in the need and purpose information and the project description in the application, attached the map or GIS layers, and communicated something to us, send us an email saying, hey, project ID 300-513 is my bike ped project to connect this trail with that trail. All the material that you've requested is uploaded. Please let us know if you have any questions. Then we'll go ahead and perform the analysis and send the results back to you. Great. Okay, I'll pause here for just a moment to see if anybody other questions come out. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions at this time. So again, thank you all very, very much for your participation. I will be grouping these responses with previous Q&A documents. I've got those packaged together. We'll be getting those posted later today. So feel free to send us any other questions, particularly to that tip@h-gac.com email address. And otherwise, I will talk to you all next week. Thanks again. Bye.